Good morning, and thank you for being with us. The Republican Party had a strong showing across the country on Tuesday, culminating with the election of Donald Trump as our next president. That red wave, though, did not make it to Connecticut, with all of our representatives in the House and Senator Chris Murphy all winning re-election. The tightest race was in the 5th District, a rematch between Republican George Logan and incumbent Democrat Jahana Hayes. Congresswoman Hayes joins me this morning. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So many people had this bullseye on that race, probably from the day the last Congress was sworn in. And it didn't stop. The ads, everybody who owns a television saw those ads, whether it was your ads or your opponent's ads. It was such a focus. Were you surprised by the results? What did you take once you saw the final tally?
Well, let me just say I was grateful to wake up today and not see a TV ad with my face on it. But the results reflected the hard work that we did. Many of the areas where we turned out in stronger numbers were the targeted areas. We had a strong ground game, but also just a message where I was able to articulate to the people in this district the deliverables, what I've done since I've been in Congress, and really make the case for me to go back and continue that work.
Well, and that was the ad, and speaking of ads, that last ad that aired in the days leading up to the election was you talking about bills you had passed and things like that. Your top-notch staff told us that it had been 1972 since there was someone in that district who had won a 4th term. Yes. Do you feel now like you have something of a mandate from those voters? Like, what do you look at it as moving forward?
Well, yes. So I'm the first person to hold this seat for 4 consecutive terms in 52 years. So it's quite historic. Everyone said after the 3rd term, you know, it's always shaky in this district, but it's always been a mandate for me. I accept the responsibility. I asked for this job, and people are sending me back to Washington to do it. And this is a tough district. It always is. You know, you have a microcosm of society. I have urban areas, rural areas, suburban areas, just different communities. And you have to be able to go into any room in any community and speak to people where they are. And I think that over the last 6 years, I've built a relationship with this district. And I was able to remind people of that and really get my marching orders for going forward. So I'm looking forward to going back to Washington this week.
That microcosm that you talk about can sort of be extrapolated to the country, right?
Yes.
Because we saw those election results coming in, and we would see, say, Georgia, red, 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 and then Atlanta and Savannah would be blue. You deal with that in your district, where there are very rural areas that in many cases would be more maybe leaning Republican, and then some very urban areas that would be traditionally Democratic areas. Yes. What can you take from your experiences now winning these races in the 5th District that maybe speaks to what the nation saw in nationwide results on Tuesday night?
Well, people care about their families. They care about the things that are important to them, those kitchen table issues. They want their family to be safe. And what I've tried to do in this district is just first of all, be a truth teller, go into any community, but remind people, even if there's a perspective that you may have never considered, just hear me out. You know, just like you want your family to be safe, other communities want their families to be safe. We all have a vested interest in each other's success. There are some things that are just a public good that we all benefit from. And I'm really proud of the people in the 5th Congressional District, because when I've gone into those communities, you know, places like the Northwest Corner, very, very rural communities, where I was always warned that I'd have a challenge, you know, penetrating in those areas, talking to people. Once you sit down at a table and have a conversation with people, we all want the exact same things, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. And I think that has been the greatest gift of representing this district. I'm forced to think about things in a way that I've never had to before. I'm forced to, you know, meet people in places that I've never even had to consider. And I think that's what we have to do going forward as a country.
You have served under a Trump administration. You've served under a couple of terms under a Biden administration. I noted that in your remarks after winning and in Chris Murphy's, you both used the term bittersweet because of the national results. Senator Blumenthal went even further and said that he looked at the results and there was no way of sugarcoating it. It would be bad for Connecticut. What do you plan to do under a Trump administration, and how will it affect people in Connecticut?
I mean, obviously it was bittersweet. I was a strong supporter of Vice President Kamala Harris, and I think she she ran a tremendous race. So I thought we'd be celebrating together. So it was bittersweet for me to have a victory and her not to. But we continue the work. Like I said, I asked for this job, and the work is too important. I also know that as we look at the results across the country, one of the things that I'm trying to reconcile with is that millions of people in this country voted for a vision that is frightening to me. But they are Americans, and there is something going on, and we have to figure out, how do we find consensus? Where do we meet in the middle? And I think there's going to be this natural urge by Democrats to kind of, move farther to the right, but I urge people not to embrace xenophobia or misogyny or this hateful rhetoric. I didn't get elected to follow. We have to not follow people into the darkness, but lead them into the light, and just continue to try to find ways to work together, continue to try to listen to Americans who have grievances to try to figure out, let's get to the core of these issues. But I refuse to accept, that we are going to be a country where we divide people into groups and separate them and not look after the least of us. So that's going to be work, but I've done it before. Like you said, I've served in 2 administrations. I've gotten legislation passed under Trump and Biden. I know how to work with people. It's going to be more difficult, obviously, but it's even more important and more necessary. And we all accept the result of the election. The competition is over. We win to govern, and now we have to go back to work and really just lower the temperature and try to figure out how to steady the ship.
Only about a minute left, but what you said about some beliefs across the aisle being scary to you, probably some of those folks would say some of your beliefs are scary to them. So how do you find that consensus if it's not just, I want to raise taxes, you want to lower taxes, and we disagree? Both sides find the other side frightening. Less than a minute, but how do you address that, Congresswoman?
I fundamentally think that there is good in people. And even if we have different ways to get there, I think people who go into this work truly believe that they want to do what's best for this country. I say I don't care if it's one thing that we have in common. Let's find the one thing that we can agree upon and then work our way out and build upon that. Instead of focusing on the things we disagree about, let's start with what we can agree on, and then just continue to work back and forth. I respect the opinions of people who are different than mine, people who think that some democratic values are scary. And, I think it's going to start with listening, just listening and, again, lowering the temperature and see how do we navigate the next 4 years, and there'll be another election. You live to fight another day.
Well, it will certainly be an interesting next few years. We're going to all see how it plays out together, and that divide is for sure real, and how it will be crossed,
But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. So I think that this election can serve as a reset so that we can, come back to the table and work on getting some work done.
All right, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, congratulations again, and we appreciate you coming in to talk about it.
Thank you.